along with salutations all my YouTubians, ODYSEEans, Slayin Saiyans, Cobra Kai's, and all of my pumpkins that are smashing. Today's video, we're going to be talking about Bad City, the band that really could have been. It is really kind of a tragic story, but it's very likely you've never heard of Bad City, and my pumpkins who are smashing, you especially are going to want to stick around for this because I think you will find it the most fascinating. But Bad City was a band who only had one album released, and I'm going to tell you, had they made it past that first album, it is very likely they would be my second favorite band next to the Smashing Pumpkins right now. And the Pumpkins are how I actually discovered this band, but their story is very tragic. So we're going to be looking at the rise, the fall, and how I personally discovered them and what I loved about them so much in today's video. But I do want to let you know up front, I usually don't do trigger warnings. Like, I talk about, grooming and online predatory behavior a lot, and I typically don't do a trigger warning, but today's video, we will be discussing later in the video, some sexual assault, so just know if that kind of thing is bad for you, you might want to go away or skip through toward the end of the video. So, that is your trigger warning, but I'm going to get into Bad City, why they were so great, and why it sucks what happened, and how it's like almost infuriating on so many different levels. But before I do, you already know what to do. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're watching on YouTube. Follow the channel if you're watching on ODYSEE. You can gently caress that notification bell on either platform so you know every time I, Original Asherella, upload a video. Leave me a like, leave me a comment, and follow me on my social media accounts. I have Instagram and I have Twitter. Okay, so I don't do a lot of videos in this style, so just kind of bear with me if I'm like kind of hacking my way through it. But as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about the band Bad City. And before I really get into like the meat of the story, okay, I first discovered Bad City because they opened for the Smashing Pumpkins. Now, you already know the Smashing Pumpkins are my favorite band, and there was this era of the Pumpkins that was basically like Billy touring as the Smashing Pumpkins. I like to call it like an exhibition era of the Smashing Pumpkins, but this tour, like, there was no James around, Darcy wasn't around, Jimmy was in and out. This is when we picked up Jeff, who's now like a full-time Pumpkin, but Billy was touring as the Pumpkins. They were, the closest place that they were playing to me was Knoxville, Tennessee, at like a small kind of club venue. And anytime I see the Pumpkins or any other band that I really like at a small venue where there's not like specific seating, I get there way early before the doors. I mean, Billy Corgan's going to be there, got to get as close as possible, right? So that there's no exception with this show. So I get there, get to the show, I get there early, I get right up on the stage, and there are two opening acts for the Pumpkins at this particular show and on this tour. And one is a band called Kill Hannah, who I'd never heard of before. And the other was a band called Bad City, who I had never heard of before. And there have been times that I found other bands that I like because they're openers for somebody I'm going to see. But typically they're kind of just like time killers and fillers until, the Pumpkins or whoever else come on. I didn't really go into these opening acts with any, like, high expectations. And, like, Kill Hannah was okay. They were, like, this was, like, 2010 or 11. And it was in that, like, emo was very, like, hitting its peak, and, like, all the emo bands were really kind of becoming popular. And they kind of fell into that category. But the other band, Bad City, they were actually the first band that opened up. And, they come onto stage and they're these scruffy kind of rocker looking kids, and their front man comes on and he is this bleach blonde skinny dude, like totally like rock and rolled up, you know what I mean? And you're like, okay, what's this gonna be like? And like, this band went on stage with the crowd, if not just being indifferent toward them, almost against them, right? And, I could see that if you saw their lead singer, his name is Josh Caddy, by the way, you would be like, this kid might be a poser, right? But anyway, they go onto stage, and, like, from the very first verse of the very first song, like, they were putting on a show. Like, this skinny blonde kid was born to be a rock star. Like, his stage presence was insane. Like, he was interacting with the crowd who were like almost kind of heckling them at first, because Bad City, okay, they're not what you expect to be an opener for the Smashing Pumpkins. They actually, like, if I were to just put a Bad City album on right now and you hear it without any other context, you would think that they were like GNR metal, like GNR era, like hair metal. They sound almost like 80s hair metal, but with something else. And we're going to listen to a little bit of Bad City here in a second so you can kind of get an idea of what I'm saying. But it was just like, they drew you in, you know, like even like the front man, like he engaged with the kind of the hecklers in a very rock star and rock and roll kind of way. It was a great show. All of their songs on this album are bangers. I'm not even kidding. Any of them could be a single, in my opinion. And like by the end of that 6-song set, like they had won the crowd over. Now, I was so impressed after the show. I went and bought a Bad City album, and this was before it was even officially released on Atlantic with like a real CD case. And it was a white cardboard sleeve with like Bad City printed on black. Like a month or two later, like the Atlantic like Slick album was released. But so I get an album and I listen to it the whole drive home, and then I keep listening to it for days. I look them up. Turns out like a month or two after that Pumpkin show, they would be opening for the band Hinder in Knoxville also. And I could give two shits about Hinder. Like, that is not my style of rock and roll at all. But I went to that Hinder show just so I could see Bad City. I actually watched Bad City, watched the first Hinder song and left. But, so yeah, they drew me in immediately, and you know, they were so great. And we're gonna get into how they kind of got the attention in the very short-lived time that they had in just a second. But before I get into that, you gotta hear them. So I'm gonna play. This was their very first video and single that was released, and it's called "Take Me for a Ride." But I don't even think it's like their best song on the album. Like I said, all of the songs could be singles. This is a great song. It's not my number one favorite, but you just got to hear this band before I go further. Okay, so now you kind of get an idea of what they sound like. And okay, so around this kind of same era, or maybe like a little bit before that, do you guys remember the band The Darkness? They had the song that was like, "I Believe in a Thing Called Love," and they were very much like this like 80s hair metal glam rock like sound and look to them. But with The Darkness, that was very obviously just like a gimmick. With Bad City, it's who they were as a band. It's the music that they wrote. They weren't trying to write in this like 80s hair metal style. It's just what they produced. And it's so good. And like, now that you've heard some, I think you can probably understand what I mean. But I'm going to read a few things from Wikipedia, like the most, you know, reliable source on the internet. This is the band, obviously. That's Josh, the Bleach Blonde lead singer guy. And this is the other guys in the band. But let me look up. If I could type, that'd be great. Okay, so one thing, they actually describe Bad City, like their musical style, on this Wikipedia page, and I think it does a better job of describing why they appeal to me so much than I ever could. So I'm going to read that for you really quick. So, okay, musical style. Bad City is praised for its anachronistic mixture of various rock genres, including 70s Kiss and Alice Cooper-inspired hard rock, ambitious 90s alternative rock such as the Smashing Pumpkins and Soundgarden, 80s style sleaze metal, and 2000s era riff rock oriented bands such as the White Stripes, and power pop a la Cheap Trick. Okay, so you're talking Kiss, Alice Cooper, Smashing Pumpkins, Soundgarden, 80s sleaze rock, and the White Stripes and Cheap Tricks. Like, Cheap Trick, yes, like, give me that in a band altogether. So, like, they were just so good. And like I said, their sound is so very, like, 80s, like, hair metal. Like I said, they sound like they should have been opening for, like, GNR or something like that, which is funny because they did tour with Slash. But in their very short-lived career, Bad City opened for the Smashing Pumpkins. They opened for Kiss. They opened for Hinder, which is like, whatever. They opened for Slash. Like, I mean, like when I say Bad City, the band that could have been, they really could have been. Now, we're going to look at a little bit of the history of Bad City, and you might be thinking, okay, if this band is so great, why haven't I heard of them? Why didn't they come out with another album? And I'm going to get into that in just a second, but I just want to give you like a really good foundation of who Bad City is in the band before we go down that road, because it's like, right? Okay, so history. While technically formed in early 2010, the evolution of the group began in 2008 when Chicago-based band Power Space, including members Kevin Kame and Tom Schleider, recruited Chicago natives Max Pericino and Jake Sarek as touring musicians. Just before the breakup of Power Space, Pericino and Schleider began writing songs together for a new project. Temecula, California vocalist Josh Caddy soon finalized the lineup, which became known as Bad City. The band takes its name from its experience writing and recording the album in an unfavorable neighborhood in the west side of Chicago, explained in an interview. We were chased by gangs, constantly harassed by dead-looking street people. Even the kids out there are nasty. Don't get me wrong, I love the city, but it's a bad city. I think a lot of people that have experienced Chicago would agree with that. Okay, after the completion of their debut album, the band gained the attention of Billy Corgan of the Smashing Pumpkins, my heart and soul. I got really good pictures from this show of Billy because I was so close. That show where I discovered Bad City was actually the show in which I got Billy Corgan's Sweat on Me, and I refer to that as one of the highlights of my life up to this point. Might be a little sad, but it is what it is. Okay, anyway, describing the band as a super fresh take on rock, Corgan invited the band on to the Smashing Pumpkins 2010 Summer Rock Party Tour. In August 2010, Kiss frontman Paul Stanley noticed the band's song called Call Paul Stanley, because they do have a band called Call Paul Stanley, and further endorsed the band, calling their album an absolute knockout and the best album I've heard in ages. A killer, cohesive album of great rock and bombastic production that has been sorely missed. Every track is a winner, and Bad City raises the bar out of most bands' reach. It's really that good. And that was from Paul Stanley from Kiss. Like, come on. After a Midwest tour with Hinder, the band continued supporting Welcome to the Wasteland on another tour with the Smashing Pumpkins, followed by Canadian and West Coast shows with Slash. Like, oh my God. Like, these guys, their first album, and they're getting, like, attention from Kiss and, like, Paul Stanley. They are touring with the Smashing Pumpkins and Slash. Like, oh my God. Okay. It just makes me mad what happened to them and what Josh did to demise the band. Okay, so that is Bad City. Now, before we get into any more of, like, what happened to the band, I would like to play another Bad City track that is probably my whole favorite on the album, or at least part of it, and it's called Heatwave. And then we might listen to Look Out To, because I like them all. It's one of those things, it's like you have such a hard time deciding what would be my favorite song off the album. And also, and I hate when I get into this, and we talk about this on Kino and commentary sometimes, because, you know, the entertainment industry is so rampant with despicable behavior that it's, I love this album so much, but then once you find out what Josh Caddy did to break up the band, it's like you almost feel guilty about liking it so much. But, you know, you got to separate, like, the art and the creation from the person. But, okay, let's Find heat wave. Okay, here we go.
She walks like beauty in the night through.
Okay, when you are opening up, like the first line of your song is snatched from like Lord Byron, you better be like metal AF, right?
Broken glass and wasted sky. She can't get out alive. She's burning out. This place puts bullets in your back. These kids toss roses on the tracks. We gotta get out of the heat. And the sweat rolls down her bedroom sheets.
And the sweat rolls down her bedroom sheets. A little sexy there.
And she whispers me away. The word out on the street, man, is that we gotta get out of the heat wave. The city's burning, we gotta hurry. Get off while the world is turning on. We could escape and be reborn. We'll run together through the storm.
Okay, one thing that I love about Bad City so much is like their lyrics, you know, like one of the reasons I love the Smashing Pumpkins is like how amazing Billy Corgan's lyrics. And okay, this song right now, we could escape and be reborn. We'll run together through the storm. Like, it's so good.
Pushing through the wicked songs that bleed us dry. A toxic sewer of cassettes, a domino of space cadets.
Again, a toxic sewer of cassettes, a domino of space cadets.
Coffee and cigarettes askew. Would you let my fire burn in you? Would you lay your body down? Yeah. The word out on the street, babe, is that we gotta get out of the heat wave. The streets on fire, but that don't scare me. Uncle Sam and Mother Mary are burning down the freeway. So we gotta get out of the heat wave. Get off while the world turns us away. And the sirens all I hear after a while. And then my neighbors turn to silhouettes, I'll smile. And if the world stops turning, I'll be fine. Darling, I won't die. Cut myself in half and I will multiply. The word out on the street, babe, is that we gotta get out of the heat wave. The streets on fire, but that don't scare me. Uncle Sam and Mother Mary are burning down the freeway. So we gotta get out of the heat wave. 'Cause we woke up dead with the digital head. Our skin and bones with bits instead. Running scared, no one cared. Underage and unprepared. We all fed up.
Okay, so I love this. It drives so hard. It amps up so hard. You guys know how I react to music, like emotionally, and then like I have a physical reaction to it as well. And this is absolutely, it strikes that chord with me. And I just,
Near and spread. Future ghosts fell into bed. We'll get off while the world turns us away. The word out on the street, babe. Oh yeah. We gotta get out of the heat wave.
I love it because Bad City has like these, you know, like really cool, like, I mean, really riffy, like guitar solos and like, you know, super just over the top, like vocals and vocal runs, sort of like in a rock and roll style. And then, you know, you've got like group harmonics and the lyrics, and it's just so great. It's so great. And as great as this album is, like I said, it was the only one. And now we're going to talk about why. Now, blonde dude, Josh Caddy, lead singer, the charisma of the band, right? He was kicked out of the band because he was charged with sexual assault. Now, you guys know I talk a lot about like predatory behavior, grooming, you know, people taking advantage of like, you know, any type of like authority or status that they have a lot on the channel. You know, a huge part of like, you know, I mean, the foundation of my channel, like when I first started, were ODYSEE videos. And as much as I love the band, like I hate this dude now. Like as charismatic as he might be on stage, like he did something really despicable. And I actually found a case text file on, you know, that kind of is the full summary of what happened with this. And we're going to hit some of the highlights just so you have the general consensus. But the charges that he got and when he was kicked out of the band just so happened to be when they were actually on tour with Kiss. And they replaced him with a guy named Alec. And I can't remember what Alec's last name is, but it wasn't the same. Like he wasn't Josh. He didn't have what Josh had, and that was pretty much it. So, like I said, Josh Caddy was assaulted or was charged with sexual assault and convicted, eventually, of a girl. And like I said, I've got this case text file open right here, and we're gonna go through it and just hit some of the highlights of it so you have the general gist. And then, you know, we'll wrap up the video. But okay, so the order, basically he was charged with a class 1 felony. Allegedly, the defendant committed an act of sexual penetration upon the vagina of a girl, HM, with his hand, 1 count, and then his downtown, 2nd count, and the girl was unable to give consent because she was passed out. This allegedly, well, I mean, I guess it did happen because he ends up taking a plea deal, but he and one of the other bandmates, I think, were at like Illinois State University hanging out with some friends. They went back to this girl's house or apartment, and she was really intoxicated. She woke up to him doing what he was doing to her, and evidently they had no, like, not that it would make it any better, but they hadn't had any type of, like, she had a boyfriend and no sexual contact or anything like that before this happened. So evidently he just decided he was gonna do what he did to this girl while she was passed out. Now, he ended up pleading guilty to the digital penetration, and they dropped the actual, like, other type of penetration. And he never, like, admitted to that. So I don't know, you know, like, I mean, I guess we don't know if he did that or if he didn't do that, but he absolutely, you know, violated this girl in his sleep, and that's despicable. Like, you know, a drunk passed out chick can't give consent. Like, and I don't know. And what really bothers me about this so much is, like, dude, you're a rock star on the rise. Like, you have, like, the world is your oyster at this point. Like, you got a great band. You're getting attention from musical, like, legends and icons. You're touring with, like, industry giants. And you can get laid. You know what I mean? You can find hundreds, thousands of girls that would be willing, hot girls that would be willing to hook up with you whenever, most likely, you know? And I just don't understand why people make the decisions they do when it comes to things like this, especially, like, you know, I've talked about, you know, how whenever celebrities or, you know, professional athletes and stuff like that, when they get charged with, you know, any type of, like, sexual charge or crime, I don't like, some of them, I think a lot of times it's like them making really bad decisions. It's like, like Ben Roethlisberger and like Kobe Bryant, like they can hook up with whomever. Like, I mean, so many people, they don't have to like make bad decisions about who they're hooking up with. You know what I'm saying? It's like when you are at that status of like celebrity and wealth, there are tons of girls like throwing themselves at you. Like, find one that is not going to take advantage of your hookup, and certainly don't just assault one because there's another girl right down the road willing to do whatever you want to do. Like, I don't know. Does that make sense? You understand what I'm saying? But, okay. And also one thing that's really, really concerning about this case. Well, I'll get into that in just a second. Let me look at this, I'll go over the background where it says here really quickly. And it says the factual basis offered by the state at the guilty plea hearing provided the following version of events. In May 2011, the girl and the girl's boyfriend and the defendant were visiting Illinois State University to celebrate a friend's graduation and attended an art show. At some point in the night, the girl became very intoxicated and had to be carried to an upstairs bedroom of an apartment where she was staying. The girl awoke feeling somebody penetrating her vagina. She asked who was in the room, and the defendant identified himself. She fled the room and informed her boyfriend that defendant had her. Defendant later admitted to police and investigators that he put his fingers into the girl's downtown while she was sleeping. You can't do that, guys. You can't do that. Unless you have prior consent from your girlfriend or your wife or whatever. Don't do it when they're sleeping unless they say, yeah, go ahead. Like beforehand. Especially not a girl you're not dating and that I don't know. Okay. The state's charges and defendant's guilty plea. The grand jury of McLean County indicted defendant on 2 counts of criminal sexual assault, alleging he committed an act of sexual penetration upon the downtown of the girl with his hand, and then, like I said, with the other way. The girl was unable to give knowing consent. In November 2011, defendant pled guilty to count 1 in exchange for the dismissal of count 2. Like I was saying before, he never admitted to that, so we don't know if that really happened, but he did admit to the digital penetration. Okay, like I said, there's one thing that really, 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 really is... I mean, this whole case is terrible, right? But there is a background on this guy that has me even more worried and a little confused, but I couldn't find any additional detail on it to find out exactly what had happened. So let me stop rambling because I'm not making sense, but let me talk about this really quick. Okay, the following evidence was presented at the defendant's February 2012 sentencing hearing. The pre-sentence investigation report indicated that in December of 2000, that was 12 years before this hearing, when the defendant was 14 years old and living in California, he admitted allegations in a juvenile delinquency petition that he committed a lewd and lascivious act upon his 7-year-old half-sister. Little sister, defendant was placed with his grandmother until April 2001. So he did something to his little sister that made him go live with his grandma for a year. Now, the stepdad later on in this makes another reference to that, but it is in his defense. So I don't really know what he did, or I can't think. Okay, we'll get to that and then I'll share my thoughts on that. Okay, until April 2001 review hearing, after which he was permitted to return home. So they let him go home after a year. In July 2002, the original delinquency petition was dismissed with prejudice, so it couldn't have been brought back up. The PSI showed petty traffic offense from August 2003, but no prior criminal history. The PSI also included a victim impact letter in which the girl stated, in pertinent, 1, defendant's actions caused her severe emotional stress. 2, she has not been able to sleep alone. 3, she has nightmares. 4, she decided to move out of her apartment where she doesn't feel safe. 5, she has difficult with sexual relations with her boyfriend now. 6, she is suffering from depression. 7, she does not have private insurance and waiting for counseling is long. In mitigation, defendant offered without objection letters from his mother, his stepfather, Eric, his half-sister, the one that he evidently some kind of lewd and lascivious act upon, his step-grandmother, his former girlfriend, another former girlfriend, his former bandmate, that's from Bad City, another bandmate that was not in this band, another bandmate that was not in Bad City, his mother's friend, his friend and former business partner, his former boss, and then another person who the relationship with the defendant is unclear. So these are like all of these people like gave like a character reference for them. That's a lot of people to like write a character reference for you if they don't think that you're like a totally bad person. He also, and I think this is total goobery, submitted a MySpace printout of the band's MySpace profile. Like, if you're trying not to look like an arrogant asshole, like, that's almost a do you know who I am type of act when you're like, do you know who I am? Here's my band. I'm like an upcoming rock star. That I do not think was in good taste at all. But nothing that this guy has done is in good taste. So yeah, okay. Let me find, okay. This is the part that really kind of gave me an eyebrow. Eric Caddy, the defendant's stepfather, testified he never experienced any disciplinary problems with the defendant. According to Eric, defendant has a wonderful relationship with his daughter, the little sister, who was the victim of the lewd and lascivious act perpetrated by the defendant in 2000. Eric testifies that the incident in 2000 was an adolescent, non-predatory situation. The defendant never drank alcohol or used drugs while living with Eric. He never showed signs of being aggressive or violent. I can't think of what would be so severe, lewd, and lascivious that would send him to his grandmother that wasn't predatory. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, he was 14, but like at 14, you know what you're doing. You're still a kid, definitely. But you know the difference between right and wrong in those situations for the most part. And especially like your 7-year-old sister. I don't know if you have an idea of what type of charge that could have been. Let me know down in the comments below. And then also his mother testified that the little sister was responsible for organizing the letter writing efforts on behalf of the defendant. The mom testified regarding the defendant's musical talents, his involvement with the bands, Three Armada and Bad City, his experience during touring with the bands, and his success as a marketing his musical talents. Alicia testified the defendant was a beautiful, caring, thoughtful, talented young man. I was going to say he might be, but he should have been more thoughtful and caring before he stuck his fingers inside that passed out girl, right? Okay, so when everything's said and done, he was sentenced to 7 years in prison. And, you know, the band replaced him. They didn't last. They broke up after that tour. And we haven't heard anything from Mr. Caddy since then. One of the bandmates works in the music industry under an alias. And then another one is either has or was getting their PhD at this point. I'm not sure. But that is what happened to Bad City. Now, I don't know if Josh served the full 7 years. I'd say probably not, considering he did not have a criminal history, an adult criminal history up to that point. And, you know, as far as I can tell, you know, the prison system, especially the Illinois prison system, is overran. I don't feel good for him having to go to prison because, you know, he likely had somebody do to him what he did to that girl. And when I say I don't feel good for him, I don't feel bad for him because you reap what you sow, right? But it was probably a pretty horrible situation for him in prison, being, you know, the little kind of pretty boy rock star that he was. But Yeah, that's what happened to Bad City. They could have been and started a new era of like really good music and rock and roll that appealed to everybody that liked music up until that slicked up stadium rock. Like, when I say that, it's like the early 2000s rock bands where everybody wanted to sound like Eddie Vedder, and it was all like it was like stadium rock that was trying to be deep, but it just missed the mark. And I'm talking about bands like Nickelback and Creed and like Puddle of Mud and bands like that. Like, I don't like those bands. I think they're cliche. I think they're generic. I don't think that they really contributed all that much to like rock and roll history in general, other than like a really cringy period. Like, Bad City could have been the start of like this whole new badass era of rock and roll. And they would have been if this dude would have just made better choices and not been a terrible creep. That being said, I love Welcome to the Wasteland. It is a great album. We're going to listen to one more track from Bad City, and I'm trying to think of what I want to play. Showdown in Central Park is a really good one. We'll do Showdown in Central Park. But go on to you can listen to the whole album on YouTube for free, and you can watch the 2 videos. They actually had 2 videos come out. One, the Take Me for a Ride that we already saw, and then one for a song called Wildlife. And they're cool. You know, I mean, they're just rock videos, but they're pretty cool. So listen to this album. You'll totally get what I'm saying. Call Paul Stanley is a good one too. They're all good. I don't even know what I'm talking about. But okay, this is Showdown in Central Park. It is so rock and roll. Okay, you know from that intro, this song is going to be great. This song especially really highlights how good they were at those group vocals and like harmonization. Like, they all played an instrument, Josh sang, but all the other guys did backup vocals, and it just worked so good.
Everybody's running my way. I'm scalping tickets to the sold out Judgment Day.
Everybody's running my way. I'm scalping tickets to the sold out Judgment Day. Pretty cool. We can put it all on the line for a shot at the big time. I love this song.
We'll take you to the streets tonight. Hit 'em with the left and right. We'll make you our soldier. In the army of rock and roll.
We'll take you to the streets tonight. Hit you with the left and right. We'll make you a soldier in the army of rock and roll. You know, you guys know, like, when I'm listening to music that I really like, I lose my vocabulary, and a lot of times all I can do is just, like, and squeal and grunt, and like, oh my god, it's so good. But that's how I feel. That guitar solo. Oh man, is it good, right? That's a little prophetic there, right? Like, we might fuck it up, but we had a good time. You did fuck it up, Josh. Okay, guys, that is it for this video. I know it's a little bit of a long one, but Bad City, the band that could be my second favorite band right now. What did you guys think of Bad City? What did you think of the music that I played? Do you know of any other bands that could have been great, but just something happened? Let me know all that down in the comments below. I'm going to stop talking now. I'm Asherella. This is original Asherella. If you don't subscribe to the channel, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. If you're watching on ODYSEE, make sure you follow the channel on ODYSEE. You can gently press the notification bell on either platform so you know every time I upload a video. If you're on Twitch, follow my Twitch channel. I don't upload these videos. We do a live movie show called Kino and Commentary on Sundays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We watch really good movies. It's a good time. We always have a good time in the chat, so make sure you check out my Twitch channel, Original Asherella. Leave me a like, leave me a comment, follow me on my social media accounts. I have Instagram and I have Twitter. Always tap in, never tap out, and don't forget to keep on slaying like a Saiyan.